Hello my friends, it's Laura. Welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be one of my most exciting videos to film at the end of the year, beginning of the next year, and that is my anticipated releases for 2023. I'm pretty sure I have just as many this year as I did last year. A lot of the books that I was anticipating highly for 2022 got pushed back to 2023, so a lot of these might be familiar. Most of these are from authors that I have read from before and enjoyed. A couple of them though I feel like are authors I haven't read from before. Because I have so many books, I'm not going to go into synopses for all of these, so definitely if you're interested, look them up. Also, these are the release dates I have according to Goodreads. Some of them I have gone and like verified from Amazon or other bookstores' websites as far as pre-order dates. So some of them may be more accurate than others, but of course, release dates are always subject to change. So that being said, let's get into my list. So first up on my list is one that I knew about but forgot about until I was watching someone else's anticipated releases video, and that is Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. This comes out on January 3rd of 2023, and it's actually a YA romance, which I don't know that she's done a YA romance before. If I'm wrong, let me know. But I have enjoyed what I've read from Talia Hibbert before, so very excited for this one. I think it takes place at like a survival camp or survival course in the woods. And it also says that it's laugh out loud funny. The next one I have on my list comes out on January 10th. One of the most exciting releases for me in 2023. It is Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. This is the second book to Ninth House, which took me a while to get into, but I actually ended up loving it by the time I got to the end. So I'm very anxious to get to the second book, especially with the way the first book ended, and see where things go next. Not all of these I'm going to be picking up right away as soon as they come out, but this one for sure I will be picking up and reading in the month of January, right after I reread Ninth House, and I cannot wait for it. Also on the 10th, we have Lost in the Moment and Found by Shauna McGuire. This one is the 8th book in the Wayward Children series. They are a series of novellas and they follow kids that have found these doors to magical worlds that fit them perfectly, but for whatever reason they end up getting sent back to the real world and have to cope with not being in their perfect worlds anymore, and so they go to Eleanor West's Home for Wayward Children. Half of the books are set at the school and then half are like set in a fantastical world. And I think this one is set in a world, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it says a young girl discovers an infinite variety of worlds. Love the cover of it. Very excited. Then on the 17th of January, we have How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This is one that was supposed to come out in 2022, but ended up getting pushed back to 2023, which is fine. I'm not a huge fan of this cover, but I'm gonna read the story and probably love it. I love Grady Hendrix books. I haven't read all of them yet. I still have a few I need to get to on his backlist. I really love his campy horror style, and I'm guessing this one's gonna be funny and slightly disturbing, and I cannot wait. Also on the 17th of January, we have Mysteries of Thorn Manor by Margaret Rogerson, which is actually like a prequel, I guess, novella to Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson, which is one of my absolute favorite books. A sequel novella to Sorcery of Thorns. It says Elizabeth, Nathaniel, and Silas must unravel the magical trap keeping them inside Thorn Manor in time for their midwinter ball. Okay, I had no idea. This is the first time I'm even looking at the synopsis. I just immediately added it to my TBR because it's Margaret Rogerson and I love her. But apparently this is a sequel to Sorcery of Thorns, which makes me even more excited. And then finally on the 31st of January, we have Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare, which is the third and final book in the Last Hours trilogy. It follows the children of the characters from the Infernal Devices. It's all part of the greater Shadowhunter world. Literally can't say anything about it because it's the third book in a series in a saga that's been going on for quite some time now, but I'm very excited and it's gonna be a big one. It's 752 pages. Moving into February, I only have one for February so far, and that is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi. This is by an author that I have read from before, even though I haven't loved what I read of hers. I think I read what was the wolf one? The Gilded Wolves, I think that was it. I didn't love the story, but I did enjoy her writing, and I'm excited to pick up more from her. her, especially since this is an adult title from her, I'm pretty sure. It says it's a gothic-infused story about a marriage that is unraveled by dark secrets, a friendship cursed to end in tragedy, and the danger of believing in fairy tales. All of that sounds amazing. This is her adult debut. I have very high hopes for this. I hope it lives up to my expectations. So moving into March, the first book I have on my list is The Adventures of Amina al-Sarifi by S.A. Chakraborty, which comes out on the 7th of March. So Shannon Chakraborty wrote the David trilogy, which is one of my favorite series of all time. Absolutely loved it, and this is a new book by her. I don't know if it's set in the same world or not. I've heard that it was, but I don't know that for sure. But it is about pirates. It says, Shannon Chakraborty spins a new trilogy of magic and mayhem on the high seas in this tale of pirates and sorcerers, forbidden artifacts, and ancient mysteries in one woman's determined quest to seize a final chance at glory and write her own legend. That just sounds perfect. I will literally read absolutely anything by this woman. Also, hopefully coming out on the 7th of March, we have The Faithless by C.L. Clarke. This is the sequel to The Unbroken, North African inspired fantasy, military fantasy, which usually isn't my thing, but this one worked for me so well. I really enjoyed the writing. I loved these characters, and it's so complicated, just the relationships and everything, and I had a blast with The Unbroken, and I cannot wait for the sequel. I'm pretty sure that this is set to be a trilogy, so this isn't the last book in the series like I thought it was going to be, but that's okay. On the 9th of March, we have A Spell of Good Things by Ayobami Adebayo. This is the author who wrote Stay With Me. If you have not read that book, it is so incredibly emotional. It's more literary than I usually tend to read, but for whatever reason, I ended up picking it up and absolutely loving it. I fell in love with this author's writing, and I honestly do not even know what this book is about. I saw her name, I saw that she was coming out with a new book, and I added it to my list. But it says we're following modern Nigeria and two families caught in the riptides of wealth, power, romantic obsession, and political corruption. The next two on my list, both coming out in March, are top of my anticipated list for the year. The first one is Lone Women by Victor LaValle. This comes out on March 21st. This is another case of, like, I will read absolutely anything by this author, Victor LaValle. Anything, everything that I have picked up by him and read has been 5 stars. Absolutely loved it. And this one sounds amazing. This is a historical fiction horror. Adelaide Henry carries an enormous steamer trunk with her wherever she goes. It's locked at all times because when the trunk is opened, people around her start to disappear. That's all I know. That's all I need to know. I'm not reading any more. I cannot wait for this. Then on the 28th of March, we have A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. And if you've been here recently, you might know that T. Kingfisher has taken over my life. I read Nettle and Bone and What Moves the Dead recently by this author. Both of them were 5 stars. I love her writing. I love the creepiness with the humor. Like, it just works perfectly for me. So I am so excited for this. Once again, don't know what it's about. It says it's a haunting Southern Gothic. It explores the dark, twisted roots lurking just beneath the veneer of a perfect home and family. Moving into April, we now have a book by an author that I have never read anything from before, but they're coming out with a book that I'm highly anticipating, and that is Untethered Sky by Fonda Lee. This one comes out on April 11th. Take a minute for the cover, please, because that cover is stunning. So Fonda Lee wrote the Greenbone Saga, heard a lot of great things about it. That is on my list to read, but this just sounded perfect for me. I don't know if I've ever even mentioned this, but I love birds. I think you guys know how I feel about animals in general. I love birds, but what I love in fantasy is giant rideable birds. Like giant crows, or in this case, giant rocks. The giant rocks of legend are flown to hunt manticores by their brave and dedicated ruckers. Large magical birds, I'm down. I'm so excited for this. The cover is ridiculously stunning and has me even more excited for this. April is going to be a pretty busy month because I think I have the most releases in this month, but on the 18th of April is For the First Time Again by Sylvain Neuvel. This is the third and final book in the Take Them to the Stars trilogy, the first book being A History of What Comes Next. I know a lot of people didn't love this series or haven't been loving the series. I absolutely adored it. I love the way Sylvain Neuvel brings in these historical events, the actual historical events that have taken place, and puts them in the context of this sci-fi story. And especially with the way the second book ended, I think that this is going to be quite the explosive conclusion. I'm very excited for it. Like, I think I might be enjoying this series more than I did the Themis Files, which is saying a lot because I really did enjoy that series. So cannot wait for this one. We'll pick it up as soon as it comes out. This is another one that I'm super excited for. I mean, all of these I'm super excited for, obviously, but this one is one of the top ones, and that is The Bone Shard War by Andrea Stewart. This one comes out on April 20th, and it is the third and final book in the Drowning Empire trilogy. I think that title sets the tone for what to expect in this third book. Andrea herself said that this book is the best in the series, and honestly, I believe it. I did not expect for the second book in the series to be so much better than the first book, and the first book I loved, so I can't even imagine what's gonna happen in the third book. I am ridiculously giddy about it, you could probably tell, and honestly, April is way too far away. Okay, so I originally had this down as a April release on April 21st, but now that I'm looking at it today, it says February 21st. So I don't know which is right, but possibly February 21st, we have Conspirator by Veronica Roth, who at this point I can probably safely say is one of my favorite authors. She, of course, wrote the Divergent trilogy way back in the day, but she has since been sticking to adult fiction for the most part. Her adult fantasy Chosen Ones, absolutely loved, 5 stars for me. So I'm excited for this one. It looks like it's a novella. It says 128 pages. So a novella that is a reimagining, a razor-sharp reimagining of Antigone, which sounds very interesting. Honestly, I will read absolutely anything by this author, so I'm excited to pick it up. Next, April 25th, we have A Sleight of Shadows by Kat Howard. This finally, oh my god, I hope that this comes out in April, like it says, because we have been waiting a very long time. I know I have. Is the unexpected sequel to An Unkindness of Magicians. This was very popular quite a few years ago. It was going around here on BookTube. I picked it up, I read it, I absolutely loved it, 5 stars. So I have been highly anticipating this sequel, which was supposed to come out quite a bit ago now, but I think the author was having some health issues. Fingers crossed this comes out April 25th and I'll get to read it. I will definitely need to be reading An Unkindness of Magicians first. Also on April 25th, we have The Lake House by Sarah Beth Durst. Sarah Beth Durst is the author of the Queens of Renthia series, among many other books, but I only read the Queens of Renthia series from her, and I really enjoyed that, and I'm very excited to see something possibly a little bit different from her. I'm not sure if she's written anything like this before, but this is a YA horror, I believe. The cover, absolutely stunning, love it. And this one just sounds so incredibly interesting. So it says, Claire, our main character, arrives at an off-the-grid summer camp to find a blackened, burned husk instead of a lodge and no survivors, except her and 2 other late arrivals. And then I think they find a body in the woods and things go from there. I don't know if this is going to be like a survival type situation or what's going on, but that just intrigues me so much. That premise just sounds like everything, and I cannot wait for this one. I think it's going to be really, really fun. And now we are moving into the month of May. I think I only have I only have one book for the month of May, and it is, if I had to pick one book off of this list that was my one most anticipated release of the year, it would be this one, and that is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang, the author of Babel and also the Poppy War trilogy. Babel is literally my new favorite book of the year. I absolutely loved it, and now I will read everything this woman writes, and I think she is absolutely going in on this book, okay? It says Juniper Song is not who she says she is. She didn't write the book she claims she wrote, and she is most certainly not Asian American. I think that this is going to be funny, incredibly interesting, and have a lot to say, and I am so here for it. I am so ready. Another one that recently got a cover is the Grimoire of Grave Fates. So this is a collaboration type novel. This was originally supposed to come out in 2022 and then got pushed back. This is coming out, we've moved into June now. I don't know if I mentioned that, but this comes out June 6th. And it is edited by Hannah Alcaff and Margaret Owen. This is about a professor at a school for magicians. So we've got a magic school situation, a professor who gets murdered, I believe, and then we get the perspectives from 12, is it 12 students? 18 students, as they try to puzzle out the clues and find the guilty party. I'm very excited about the list of authors that we have in here, but the ones that I'm most excited about are Hafsa Faizal, who's one of my favorites, L.L. McKinney, Mason Deaver, and Victoria Lee. It sounds really interesting, and I like the idea of this. I don't know how it's going to be set up, like the structure of it. I don't know if it's like 18 stories that are woven together or if it's one story with 18 perspectives. I have no idea, but I'm excited for it. One that recently got announced is A Benny's Song by P. J. Clark, who is another one of my favorite authors. I have loved everything I read by him, but this one is a middle grade. It's his first middle grade, which draws on African and diaspora myths and folklore, a fantasy adventure about a reluctant magic apprentice, her spirit friends, and the village she sets out to save from the evil witch priest. Okay, moving into July, we have another book that was originally supposed to come out in 2022 but got pushed back, and that is Blood Over Bright Haven by M.L. Wang. M.L. Wang is the author of The Sword of Kaigan, which was one of my favorite books of the year I read it. This is the cover. It's stunning. Very excited for it. I think that this one is dark academia, and I know it's going to be amazing. Okay, next we have, on the 11th of July, A Shot in the Dark by Victoria Lee. Victoria Lee wrote A Lesson in Vengeance, which was one of my favorite books of last year. That was more dark academia. I think this is more romance, which is interesting. It says an emotionally powerful romance novel about two people finding love after struggling with addiction. So I think that this is going to be probably pretty hard-hitting. Victoria Lee's writing is very beautiful, very poetic and lyrical, and with that writing and this premise, I think it's going to be amazing. So this is one I am very excited about. Next, we have on the 18th of July, we have Silver Nitrate. This is by Silvia Moreno Garcia. It has been a goal of mine this year to get through all of her backlist. I haven't quite made it there yet, but I've read quite a few books by her, and I've loved every single one of them. This one says that it's a fabulous meld of Mexican horror movies and Nazi occultism, a dark thriller about the curse that haunts a legendary lost film and awakens one woman's hidden powers. It sounds amazing. I will read absolutely anything by this author. I love her writing, and I think this one might be possibly one of my favorites by her just on premise alone. Super excited about this one. Love the cover. Next book comes out on July 25th, and this is by an author that I have not read before. In fact, I believe they are a debut author. This is The Sun and the Void by Gabriela Romero Lacruz. This says, in a lush world inspired by the history and folklore of South America, a sweeping epic fantasy of colonialism, ancient magic, and two young women's quest for belonging unfold. This one really excited me because it mentions gods in the synopsis. You know how I feel about gods and fantasy. Our main character, Reina, is attacked by creatures that stalk the region, and she's only saved because of her grandmother, who is a dark sorceress, but she's dependent on this magic to stay alive. She will do anything for her life, including the bidding of an ancient god who whispers to her at night. That is the part of the synopsis that sold me, so hopefully I will really enjoy this one. Now we are moving into August. The first one I have in August comes out on the 15th. This is Spin a Black Yarn by Josh Malerman, who of course is another one of my favorite authors. He typically writes horror. He's the author of Bird Box, but this is a collection of novellas, I believe. It says overflowing with horror, imagination, and moving portrayals of humanity. It doesn't matter what it's about. I will read anything by Josh Malerman, so very excited for this one. It does not have a cover yet, but I am very excited to see what the cover is going to look like. On the 8th, I guess. I originally had a different date for this one, but it says the 8th on Goodreads, so that's what I'm going with. This is Looking Glass Sound by Katrina Ward. Katrina Ward wrote Last House on Needless Street, which I recently read and absolutely loved, and will now read absolutely anything by this author. So this one, first of all, the cover, love it. Twisty psychological horror that takes place in a lonely cottage overlooking the windswept Maine coast. Wilder Harrow begins the last book he will ever write. So it's about an author. It is the story of his childhood summer companions and the killer that stalked the small New England town, of the body they found and the horror of that discovery echoing down the decades. I have one book coming out in September that I'm very excited for. It comes out on September 15th and it is by Alyssa Cole and it's called One of Us Knows. This one does not have a cover yet, but it is another adult thriller by Alyssa Cole. And after reading When No One Is Watching, I am so excited to get another thriller by Alyssa Cole. Alyssa Cole typically in the past has written romances, and I've read some of her romances and I really enjoyed them, but her thriller, When No One Is Watching, I think that is her genre. And I'm very excited for her next thriller, which is this one. What is it about? I have no idea. It says it's about the new caretaker of a historic estate who finds herself trapped on an island with a murderer and the ghost of her past. I have 3 books coming out in the month of October, my birthday month, and the first one comes out on the 10th. In fact, I think all of these come out on the 10th. So first we have Silverborn, The Mystery of Morgan Crow. This is the 4th book in the Nevermore series, which is a middle grade series that I absolutely adore. This was originally supposed to come out in 2022 but got pushed back all the way to October of this year. Have been dying for this book and I cannot wait for it. The first book follows Morgan Crow, who is a cursed child destined to die on her 11th birthday, until a mysterious man named Jupiter North sweeps in and takes her away to Nevermore. And it's just one of the most whimsical, beautifully written middle grades ever. Absolutely adore it and cannot wait for this 4th book. Also coming out on the 10th, we have Electo the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This is the 4th and final, I believe, book in the Locktoon series, the first book being Gideon the Ninth. I've talked about this recently because I just finished the 3rd one, which was Nona the Ninth, and I really enjoyed it. Very excited for the final book to see what happens and how everything wraps up. I have adored this series. It's lesbian necromancers in space, this amazing blend of sci-fi fantasy. It's ridiculously funny and sarcastic and confusing and so many things. I love it. Cannot wait for this book. Also cannot wait for the cover reveal whenever that happens, because I just cannot wait to see what this cover is going to look like. It's probably going to be stunning. And then the last book that's coming out in October, also on the 10th, is Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. So I didn't even know this was a thing until I saw on her Instagram where she was talking about it. This is not the final cover, but I'm very excited to see what the final cover is going to look like. This is Cassandra Clare's first book that is set outside of the Shadowhunter world. Wow, very excited for that. But also, it's an adult fantasy. Honestly, the synopsis, I haven't read the whole synopsis, but it sounds very generic fantasy-ish. But it's Cassandra Clare. I love the Shadowhunter world. I've been reading her books now for a decade or more at this point, and I'm so excited for a book outside of the Shadowhunter world. I don't know what it's gonna look like, I don't know what it's gonna be like, but I'm gonna read it. And I'm very excited about it. And then finally, the last book on my list. The date I have written down is November 21st. It is Defiant by Brandon Sanderson. This is the 4th book in the Skyward series. It's the last book in the Skyward series, which is his young adult sci-fi series following Spensa. I've really enjoyed this series so far, and of course I'm gonna pick up and read the conclusion to the series. You guys know already, Brandon Sanderson is my favorite author. And of course, I did not mention all of the Brandon Sanderson Secret Project books. Those are top on my anticipated releases list, but I just think those go without saying. I'm very excited for those to come next year. And that is it. That is my ridiculously long list of all of the books that I am highly anticipating for 2023. Talk to me down in the comments. Let me know what you thought of the list. Have you heard of some of these? Did I add some to your TBR? Let me know if I didn't mention one that you think I should be excited about down in the comments, because we all know how much I love adding more books to my endless TBR. But that is going to be it from me today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!